Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Yentel Hamid, pediatric surgeon in East London, Eastern Cape. And today I have the pleasure of having a chat with a friend of mine, Dr. Zanele Bosch, who is an osteopath here in East London. And her practice is called Pilani Integrative Health. It consists of two arms. One of them is chronic pain clinic, and one is restorative health. And the two of us are just so passionate about gut health, and that's essentially where all of our conversations converge and descend. And yeah, I feel like I'm collecting Good Poo, Dr. Good Poo, the Dr. Good Poo tribe. So yeah, thank you so much, Zanele, for taking the time out this morning just to chat to me. Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good day. Thank you so much, Dr. Yentel Hamid, for actually inviting me to have this conversation with you. It was a pleasant surprise when I received the invitation, and I'm very excited to be on this platform with you today. And as you introduced me, I am Dr. Zanele Bosch and the founder of Pilani Integrative Health. Pilani means to heal, to be well, to be healthy. It's a Xhosa word. Xhosa is a South African, one of the South African indigenous languages. And here we work with people who have chronic pain. And we've learned that once we take them through the chronic pain stages, they also want to understand how to live the wellness side of it. So that's why we've got the restorative health side of it as well. And my training is both in osteopathy. I practice manual osteopathy, and I studied through the university, National University of Medical Sciences, which has its bases in Spain, in America, and recently in Panama. And we also have a sister college in Canada. That is on your basic undergrad, it's a 5-year training. And I also did my doctorate in botanical medicines because I am also an indigenous healer in South Africa. So I wanted to explore the science side of botanical medicines and understand the clinical aspects of it as well. And that's what I work from, and those are the tools that I draw from. Yeah.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. So that's like centuries of training.
And I'm still studying,
And still
actually.
studying.
I'm studying now something called naprapathy, which is a connective tissue specialist. And I'm actually doing my paper looking at the gut system connected to that, obviously, chronic pain. So, yeah.
Amazing. So, will you tell us? So, all of these interviews are actually quite a lead up and momentum to the Good Poo Festival on the 18th of October, which is a gut health festival. And if you cannot talk gut health without talking the microbiome. So, I just want to know what is the microbiome according to Dr. Bosch?
Yeah. Microbiome for me is everything. It's my excitement. So, according to me, I've been making the connections with the microbiome as far back. It's as old as almost our ancestry coding information. So we're learning about how old our story goes with the microbiome, and it is said in the science it was sort of like the beginning of life as we understand it on scientific side. But on a simple terms, microbiome is like a vast community, right? Where all these different microbes live. And they love to live together, and some are competitive, like we know in our communities. So, you can imagine the global community, and with all diversity of humans and their characters and their behaviors and what they contribute in the community, excuse me. And so that is what the microbiome is. And it consists of not only bacteria, but fungi, yeasts, as well as viruses as well. They are part of the microbiome. And these as I said, our relationship goes way back, and I like to refer to it as the forgotten organ, because it's like an organ. It has its own life. It helps us. It helps to give us oxygen. It helps us with giving some vitamins to us, etc. And we'll be unpacking those parts. So in a nutshell, it's we humans are in a sense also a big microbiome. We like a walking ecosystem, and we are dependent on those microbes, that variety, that big community, which is the microbiome. Yeah.
Incredible. I love that. The forgotten organ. We are an ecosystem. It's all really just an amazing way to conceptualize it because I think for many people it's still very, very abstract, even though I think for maybe for you and I who are a little bit like obsessed, it's probably a much more concrete concept. So I just want you to tell us how one can what does the microbiome do? Like, why would we need all these organisms? What are their functions?
That's a lovely question. And just to quickly go back to that ecosystem we're talking about, when I'm talking about the microbiome, I also like to speak about, especially in the gut microbiome, I like to look at it as a garden. And excuse me, I'm not good with technology. I wanted to show the picture, but I don't know how to. But we might add it later. But I've got this lovely image that I use, which is this lovely column and this garden that we have. And now you're asking me, what does it do and how does it help us? I'd like to start the story in regards to, I think sometimes for us to understand the importance of things, it's also maybe to know how did we come about it, as humans now living, in our lives now. The story is that we humans, all of us, male, female, doesn't matter. We receive our first microbes through our mother, and that happens during the birthing. Okay, so we collect the bacterial, the yeast, the fungi, the viruses as we go down that beautiful birth canal. And as nature intended, of course, we come out, and then usually we've got the skin to skin time with our mothers, right? Mom puts us on the chest, is usually bare. And so that is our second time when we are introduced to the next type of microbes. And then we latch on the breast. And as we latch on the breast, we get this beautiful burst of this lovely milk. I can just imagine it. And it's called the gold liquid, because it's gold, the colostrum, it's gold. And the colostrum, it is said that it's the first prebiotic. It's the first fiber. It's feeding these microbes that we just picked up down the vaginal canal and from mom's skin. And then we feed it. And it's also obviously it becomes then we've created the foundation of our microbiome from being an infant. So the story of the microbiome, it's not something that we're only just picking up now. Nature intended us to have those microbes. And your question is, why? Why are they important? This is something that I've enjoyed learning about. It is said that these little microbes, these bacteria, they're the ones that actually consume the food that we eat, and they eat that food, all right? And we benefit from what those microbes produce. So in a simple language, it's almost like the food speaks a different language when it comes into our body, right? And the microbes are like the translators. They take that language from the food, they translate that language so that our bodies can better understand it, better consume it, better receive it. And they do that in the form of breaking down the food and giving us the metabolites. And those metabolites come in forms of both compounds, vitamins, the vitamin Ks, the vitamin Bs, they come from the microbes that are in our system. And therefore, when they create all those beautiful things for us, those things help us with the lining of the gut lining, which is one of the challenges that people have illnesses now. Some of those vitamins also, they help to reduce inflammation in our systems. Yeah. And now we're learning that they also even help us to communicate the mood, how we feel.
Yes.
Yeah. And between the brain, and our bodies, they helped to tell what's going on. And this is all from that community of diverse microbes. This one will say, you know what? I love being in a happy mood. So I express happy mood. So when you feed me, you're going to get some happy vibes. And the other one's going to say, you know what? I like to feel sluggish. Okay. So when you feed me, you're going to feel sluggish. And that's kind of what they do. They're part of giving us, they translate everything and they're part of building us and giving us a healthy life. Yeah.
Thank you, Zanele. That's amazing. I love this concept of translating, like the building blocks or a different language to something that we understand. And also just, I think it's like easy to understand the effects that the microbiome or what they do for digestion, what the microbiome does, what microbes do for digestion. But I think this gut-brain axis is not something that's understood completely, or not completely. It will not be understood completely for a long time, but it's not understood in a general sense. Like when we
Yeah.
speak to people, that feeding your garden can literally make you happy, make you feel better, your
Yeah.
mood better. And I think it's quite an important principle. So, how do we strengthen our microbiomes?
Yeah. Great. And talking about feeding our garden. So what I love about how nature intended and how we created, we already spoke about how already that garden is seeded from the moment we're born, right? And how already mom's body is created to be able to give us a prebiotic that will support the probiotics, or rather the microbes that we've got. So as we grow older, we want to be able to continue nurturing that garden. And you saying now what we eat is important, and it's essential because it determines what kind of plants and what kind of compost are you growing in your garden. Okay, because those microbes are actually like the compost. Okay, and so you want to continue doing the same thing. You want to continue using your probiotics. Your probiotics, it's like bringing new friends into the community. You want diversity, you want vibrancy into your community, right? You want people who bring different ideas to stimulate the community. So that's what your probiotics help you to do. Most of the probiotics obviously have the microbes that we know can help to exist. Probiotics are live type of bacteria. Okay, so they are alive and they keep going, and you bring that and you help your body to have the right type of bacteria to help you with whatever challenge that you might have. Secondly, you want to bring in the fermented foods. Now, the fermented foods are exciting because they bring a different variety. Probiotic has certain specific types of microbes in it, and then the fermented foods, they've got another vibe, okay, depending what fermented foods are you eating. Are you going to be eating your sauerkraut? Are you going to be eating your sorghum, fermented sorghum? Are you going to be eating your fermented maize, organic maize? We'll speak a bit more about that later. Are you going to be eating your acha? Your acha is a lovely one because it's got fiber as well, because it's mango and vegetables, as well as it's got the microbes in it. So the more variety of those kind of things you eat, the more different types of microbes you bring into your body. So you've got like a lovely bunch of chomies that can help you with your health.
Amazing, amazing. I'm sure many people in my family will be relieved to hear that acha is good because it's good
Yeah.
to eat also. We love it. Um, can you, like a couple of months ago already, I made a post about chia seeds, but it was like very tongue in cheek and it got no response on social media. And so I asked a few friends, why do you think no one is responding to this post? And these people were saying like people don't really know what chia seeds are. So I think sometimes we are intimidated or we push away the concept of eating healthy because it feels foreign. It feels like it's something for very wealthy people, very educated people, people who live differently to us. But can you bring it home for us? And like by home, I mean, for me, home would be like if I think about Buffalo Flats on a Sunday, that's home. Those smells, that's definitely a feeling of home to me, but also like more traditional, more accessible, more everyday food that we understand. So that we have fermented foods. Yeah.
Great. Love that question again, because that's one of my passions, and I believe it's both our passions. Because a lot of the studies, obviously, that we've been drawing from, they're mostly from the overseas.
Yeah.
The Genome Project was from the US, and the UK is doing some amazing studies. So a lot of the dietary recommendations are also quite global in that extent. And Africa has done some lovely work, by the way, research as well, in expanding the map of the microbiome studies. And we also have obviously our foods. And so here are our lovely examples of what we can relate to and what we can use here in Africa, in South Africa. Your general Xhosa, Zulu, Tswana people, they will know about the traditional beer, okay, the sorghum. That is one of the best fermented foods that we can get. Then we've got the fermented maize, as I would say, amageu. You probably see them in the shops nowadays. That's also fermented food, and that's in those kind of cultures. And the Sotho's have something called ting, which is like a fermented sorghum porridge. And then we've got the pickled foods you were speaking about, the smells in the Cape Flats. And in the Buffalo Flats. I grew up a bit in Cape Town, so I refer to the Cape Flats quite a bit. But pickled fish. Now, all of our pickled foods, they used to be fermented. They had a fermentation side to it. Now, what you need to understand, unfortunately, the pickled foods now, they mostly have vinegar, and vinegar kills the bacterial, the live bacteria. You want to find fermented type of pickled foods, okay? And back in the days, they had a mix of the beautiful fermentations inside there to keep that bacteria going. And so your achas, they were fermented. Okay, and so unfortunately, the store ones you're going to have to check now when you buy. But acha is good, as I said earlier. It's got prebiotics because it's the fiber, and it's got the variety of those microbes as well. And pickled fish, that was a lovely one to come across. Pickled fish. When we do it the right way, we actually start the fermentation before our Easters. Pickled fish is one of my favorites. When I became vegetarian, I was making a vegetarian pickled fish. Yeah. But we fermentation process is also applied within the pickled fish, and there you get another type of chomies, microbes in there. Okay, and then our ancestors, Khoisan, they used to make something called the mead, which is fermented honey drink, iqiliga. Okay, and that was also a lovely fermentation. Ginger beer, we all know khemer, ginger beer. Yeah, that's also a type of a fermentation. So it's almost like anything can be fermented if one's got the right starters, the right yeast, the right microbes to start that process with. So it's a similar with our kombuchas. The SCOBY, stands for symbiotic, okay? The C in the SCOBY stands for colony. They work together. It's a colony. It's a family, symbiotic, that works together, colony of bacterial and yeast, okay? So that SCOBY, that thing that floats on the kombucha, that is itself a microbiome on its own, okay? A family of different microbes that live together. So that's what we want to bring into our foods. And yeah, Ethiopia had one of the dishes that I enjoy a lot. You put up a recipe similar to this the other day on your Facebook page on the lentil pancake.
Like injera. I love it as well.
Exactly. Injera. Now you
Yeah.
ferment those beans. Okay. You put a starter in those beans from fermentation, and then you make that pancake. Voila. You've got a fermented kind of food that you can eat for yourself. So injera, yeah, it's one of my favorites as well. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. I loved what you said. I think it's like gold, where to, because I often think, if we're all supposed to get our omegas from salmon, like surely we would have all lived in like cold in Alaska, at the poles or something like that. So there must be something in our soil, something in our vegetables, and I love the work that's being done kind of on indigenous plants and what we have here. It's all very, very exciting for me. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And just about 3 weeks ago, I came back from a conference of that kind where integrative healers and integrative practitioners, both medical and alternative, came together. And part of the presentation that I was doing was microbiome in Africa. I mean, they've discovered extra 40,000 extra 40,000 viral type of microbes in Africa, and 1,000 extra more that weren't known microbes, okay, in Africa. And we you know, it's so beautiful for us to come back, as I called the presentation, bringing it back home, like you said earlier.
yeah,
So yeah, a lot of that work is coming up, and I work a lot with, I'm in the Eastern Cape a lot. I work a lot with the indigenous people here and the mamas. You know, when I say to the elderly mamas that now you're going to go and get chia seeds and all those things, they don't understand any of that. But then I say amache, and they say, ah, of course, I know what you're
okay,
talking about.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
So,
For us who are fortunate or unfortunate to live in the cities, we do have access to these, these prebiotic and probiotic foods in terms of store-bought foods. Like I know that you can, like the chia seeds, you can find at Checkers, organic chia seeds, flaxseed, all of those prebiotics which feed your microbiome. Discam has a beautiful aisle, and we have our local health joints here, like Lime Fusion. That also, like, I love buying my kimchi from there, and that is something wonderful. And it's interesting, like for me, my introduction to fermented foods. There are two aunties that I grew up with. One is Auntie Esme. I think you have met both these aunties, Anile. Auntie Esme and Auntie Tony. Auntie Esme makes the most amazing kimchi rice, and she really, is so good at the art of fermentation and pickling. Um, but it's a very slow process that requires patience. And I feel like maybe in the cities, that is what's lacking, is people don't have time or their priorities are very different. And Auntie Tony also, she is local. Auntie Isma is a traveler. Auntie Tony is local. Auntie Tony used to send me like just incredible kimchi with a like proper cabbage, and it's delicious. So I think we all need to find ourselves and Auntie Tony and Auntie Esme for those of us who are hustling beyond, because it really adds richness, and yeah, health is just incredible, and it is accessible, and information is accessible. We just have to package it and share it in the way that people can receive by using our own local people, people who speak the language, who understand the culture deeply, who've grown up that way. So you are a gem, Zanele. It's such a treasure. Yeah, and I think this has been amazing so far. So when I started this phone call, you were eating breakfast. So tell us about Dr. Bosch's breakfast and just the different components of your beautiful meal and what they all are doing for your microbiome.
okay, great. Great. So you caught me this morning eating a combination of organic oats, which is a fiber, and I had some chia seeds in it, which give me some omegas, as well as they also help with the fiber side of things as well. And I have yogurt there, which is obviously my microbiome in there, okay, lactobacillus. And then I have bananas. Greenish bananas. Green bananas are like prebiotic. Okay. So even in my breakfast, and I had some honey, a sprinkle of honey. And so even in my breakfast and my day-to-day food, I try to have the different varieties of the foods that will feed the microbiome. The interesting thing when we're saying foods that feed the microbiome, we're actually missing the point.
Okay.
Every food we eat feeds the microbiome. Science is showing that there's nothing else actually that we are feeding. We are feeding the microbiome at the end of the day. And what feeds us is what comes from the microbiome. We are being fed by the metabolites that come from the microbiome. So whether you're eating knickknacks and you're eating, oats, you are feeding a certain type of bacteria which will then thrive in your garden. Okay, if you don't weed your garden, etc., the weeds will thrive. And so it's a similar thing with our bodies. It's not to say that now when I'm eating this, I'm feeding the microbiome. No, even when you're eating sweets, you're feeding the candida. All right. Even when you eat. So you choose. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is choosing what we want to feed in our body. Do we want to feed the good bacteria, or do we want to feed the bacteria that might get us ill and send us to the doctor? And that's what the story is at the end.
Amazing. Amazing. I just also wanted to maybe bring in the other side of like fermented foods, probiotics, and so on. We have found that some of the fermented foods can be triggers in certain conditions, that there are maybe some people who would struggle to digest, or that it would actually make them more bloated, more uncomfortable. Um, I'm a surgeon, so I'm like completely out of my lane, even though I love driving out of my lane. But can you tell us a little bit about these food triggers?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Yentl. The this is one of those aspects where I always say we always have to look at an individual. So
Yes.
we don't have a generalized treatment at our clinic. When you come, we're looking at you, we're saying, oh, we're looking at Yentl now, and these are the conditions, etc. We take everything up to even your mental state and your emotional state. Because as we alluded earlier, the microbes also have a role in how you feel. Now, I spoke also about how the microbes are like a community. And now imagine if your body has this rainbow community, but in your rainbow community, there's mostly about purple people, okay? You've got mostly purple people. And then you start introducing pink people into your community, but now you introduce them by the dozens in one go. All right. Your rainbow, those guys, they feel at home there. They're like, this is our life here. This is how things work here. And now all of a sudden you introduce pink people and you introduce about 1,000 of those pink people. Whoa. Now the body starts going, hold on a second. Where are we going to fit these guys? How do they fit into our story? They just arrived. We need to adjust. We need to shift things around so that we can adjust to these people. And it's interesting you're saying that fermented foods can create those triggers. In fact, probiotics can create those triggers for similar reasons, because now all of a sudden you're adding a whole bunch of bifidobacteria and lactobacillus bacteria to a community that probably had other different types of bacteria. And then I kind of sometimes liken it to that survival of the fitness, and we'll check you out who you are, can you fit with us in the end? And those triggers are things that I see them in that way. I read them in that way, that our body is telling us that, okay, hold on, there's a lot. We may need you, but we just need to find a way on how to adjust it. And that's why you were asking, I think one of the questions you wanted to ask is, how can people start adding fermented foods into their diet? And we always say start little, start small. So start maybe with 2 teaspoons, 2 spoons in a day spaced out, maybe for your lunch and then for dinner, just 1 spoon in your meal, and allow your body to adjust, and maybe skip 2 days and then do it again. So you give your body that time to adjust. And it's like anything else in life. If you move from one town to the next, it's the same thing. And another lovely, fascinating thing about the microbiome, and I enjoyed hearing this, they said it takes about 3 days for the microbiome, the current microbiome, to adjust to the environment you're in. And we used to observe this on a farm. We all lived on a farm, and we used to have volunteers coming into the farm. And on the first day, obviously, they come from the city. It's a farm. You need to go find your firewood to heat up your shower and the whole thing. It's all so new for them. And usually they all seem out of place, on that first day. And we usually say, okay, they're landing. And then on the second day, it's a similar thing. They still feel a little bit dazed out. They feel like out of place. But there's a bit of like, okay, I'm starting to settle. Around about the third and the fourth day, they used to start really merging into the community. And when I heard this thing about it takes about 3 days for the microbiome to adjust to its environment, I was blown away. I said, wow, how's that? Because, we'd observed this just randomly in a place where we lived. So it's a similar thing when you're introducing fermented foods, because you must remember, you haven't been eating these foods. So you can't just immediately say to your body, now you're going to speak Afrikaans, even though you've only been speaking Xhosa all your life. Yeah.
Amazing. On that note, because I could sit and listen to you all day if I have patience waiting, I just want to say thank you so much. And just, yeah, I loved your interpretation and your translation. You were a little microorganism for us that translated this very, very like huge abstract concept into something digestible, into something we could use. I think that everyone who would listen to this video will get something from it. And I just want to highlight some of the analogies and the metaphors you used because they are exquisite. Okay, so the garden, that your colon or your microbiome is a garden, that you're always feeding it. So it doesn't matter what you're eating, you are feeding the microorganisms who are translating or breaking up the food into metabolites, and that is what feeds you. That it must be a rainbow community. So that was also a principle we highlighted when one needs diversity. What was exciting for me is you're talking about viral aspects of the microbiome, which isn't something that we're like exploring yet well, yeah, I don't know. I speak for myself. I'm not exploring it yet. And then what was also just incredibly beautiful was that we have our own versions, our home versions of all of these things that are required, that are available, accessible, inexpensive, and that the aunties and the mamas and the Esmes and the Tonys, they are making these things and we just have to, pull up that every person is individual and that you don't have kind of a one size fits all approach at your clinic, and then to start slow, and it takes about 3 days to adjust. So those are the ones that stuck out for me, but I think it's very, very rich. You taught us a lot, and I'm sure people will also be thankful for lots of the other information that you shared. Thank you so much, Dr. Bosch.
Yes. Thank you so much for hosting
Awesome.
us. And if any of your people would like to hear more, we're obviously going to be at the Good Poo Festival. Everyone, please come and join us. We're all going to be hanging out there with Dr. Yentl and all her little people whom we love very much. So come along, have fun with us, and we can all learn together.
Amazing. Have a great day. Thank you. Okay.